Welcome everyone to the Thursday night Real Estate Investors Hangout. I'm broadcasting on Wise Wealth University's homepage, my website, Facebook, YouTube, and Google+. And it's also posted on Twitter if you want to go there to find the links to the site. So it's also on YouTube, being broadcast live right at this moment. Anyway, I missed last week. I was sick. It's tough to stay away from that stuff this time of the year. In my last broadcast before Christmas, I asked people to send in their questions about private lending. I've been doing a series on the 4 F's of real estate, and we spent a few weeks on finding and also on funding the deals. So this is wrapping up those first 2 topics of finding and funding the deals, and I'm going to answer questions about funding the deals with private lenders, because that's really your preferred mode of using money and lending money for your deals, is to use private lenders. So I'm going to answer the questions that people have sent in, and I'm going to use a different format. I don't have the whiteboard up tonight. I'm going to be holding up postcards, and the card will show the question, and then we can go from there. It should make it easy for you to find the answer to your question when you look through the broadcast on the replay. I learned that from Alex Mandozian, who's one of my mentors, and he teaches on Google Plus Hangouts to use these cards, because initially the screen share function wasn't that good, so he just got the questions up by doing that. So I'm going to jump right in and talk about hard money lenders first, so you see an example of why you don't want to use hard money lenders. When I started out, I did use several hard money lenders. I've used 2 to 3, over the years. And the problem with those is that they're really a broker. And they need to collect their fees to make their money in their business, because their business is brokering your loan. So some of the fees that come with that, there's usually an underwriting fee while they investigate the property. There's a funding fee for them to just fund the loan, actually put the money in escrow is really what they're charging you for. And these fees can be $495, $595, each one of them. They also charge points, anywhere from 4 to 6 points on the loan. And then, so they take that out right at the beginning in escrow, and then you pay interest on those points that they collected. They charge a fairly high interest rate, 12 to 15%. What other fees do they have? Oh, they have an inspection fee. They'll usually do 2 inspections during the remodel to make sure things are going well, and they'll charge, depending on if they do it themselves or hire a local builder to go out and look, those will be about $500 for each inspection. And then they have a draw fee, so that when you submit your receipts, they review the receipts, and then they send you some of the money for the draw. That's if you're borrowing some of the rehab money. And they charge you for that too. They charge you to do the draw. They will only fund a certain percentage of the deal, but they're not just charging the purchase. So if you have a down payment, they actually hold the money that you put into the deal and use that as the rehab money. So they almost always have this draw situation set up where you have to get their approval before you can get, the rest of the money to do the rehab. So sometimes that makes you have starts and stops in your project because of the way they do the draw. So they have to come out and inspect it, look at your receipts, and then send you some more money so you can keep the crew going. So while it's a great way to get started, it's probably not your ideal situation for doing a remodel. And so I advocate using private money lenders as soon as you can. And so I teach quite a bit about how to find them. I have an ebook on them. I'll post a link to that later in the comments below. That's on my website. And a 10-day short email course on how to use the ebook and develop your own private lenders. I do last Hangout, I talked quite a bit about analyzing the deal and showing that to your private lenders. So underneath the previous Hangout on YouTube and on Google+, I put down several links to documents that you can use, and I'll show one of those to you tonight, that you can use to talk with your private lenders, and also a free software that you can use to analyze your deal and then make a report that you can present to your private lenders. So I have quite a few resources for you to use if you're just getting started and it's hard for you because you don't have the background to write up these reports, and it makes you a lot more credible if you have all these things in hand. So I'm providing that to you guys. All right, so let's get started with the questions. Let me grab the question cards here. Oh, one more thing about the private lenders. The private lenders that I know about get their money from one of four places. And so just so that you're aware of where it comes from, they either have their own private money lenders. So often if you want to fund a deal, they'll say, well, I have to talk to my underwriters. And what they're really doing is screening your deal past several private money lenders that they have to see who wants to fund the deal. The other source they have is if they had their own money, they made their own money in the same business or another business. They sometimes have a line of credit from a bank, a large line of credit, and they're lending it out to you, or they started a fund. If they're really professional about it, they have private lenders that have put money into a fund and then they lend the fund out. So let's get started with the questions. All right. So one of the first questions that people get, and I'm holding it, I hope the light is right for you to see the deal. The question is, what percentage of the deal can you borrow? Okay, I'm going to get some better markers for next time. So what percentage of the deal can you borrow? Well, there's two ways that the private lenders will look at the deal. And one of them is the purchase price, which is the typical way that a bank looks at a deal. And the second one is the after repair value, how much it is worth after you do the repairs. So there's several percentages that they will go by. Sometimes they'll lend at 70% of the purchase price, and then you have to have the down payment for the other 30% and your own rehab money and closing costs. The other percentage they'll do is if you have an ARV, they will lend at 60%, sometimes 70%. That's usually the limit, and sometimes as low as 50% of the after repair value. So you need to come up with the rest of the money after that point. The advantage to private lenders is that you can borrow all the money to do the deal and all the money to do the rehab. Now, if you look at other businesses, that makes sense. They capitalize and prepare and borrow the money to do their business, to run their business. They initially start with some of their own money, but they use money from different sources along the way to capitalize their business. So that's how the private money works. Private money, you can borrow the full cost of the house, which could be $100,000, and say you're putting $25,000 in, so you can borrow that as well. All right, next question that we have, which is, why can't I get a bank loan? Not why you, but why can't you use it from your rehab? Well, the first problem might be your credit. So you might not be able to get it because of your credit. The more common problem is the condition of the house. The condition of a house that you're going to be fixing that has value, you're going to be adding value to it. So the condition is usually poor. Now, the banks require, when they give a loan, that the house is livable. Okay, so how do they define livable? Livable is defined as it has an oven, it has a hot water heater, it has a furnace, and it has a functional roof. So if there's problems with any of those items, the house is not livable. Well, you know, it kind of has to have doors and windows too. So, but those are things they look for. If the oven's missing, it's not considered lendable or fundable. So the other problem with that is the length of time it takes to get the loan. You may lose the deal because you're waiting too long for the bank to approve the loan. And the second is the length of time you're going to be keeping the house. If you're flipping, you're only keeping the house a couple months, there might be a prepayment penalty that the bank has. Plus, they want to know that you're a long-term borrower, not short-term. They're not in the business of that. Okay, the other problem is that the banks do not fund over the purchase value. They will fund a percentage of the purchase value, and you have to come up with the rest. Okay, let's go to the next question. Okay, still in red. Let's see. How do you find private lenders? Okay, so the first thing you need to do is ask some of your friends, family, associates, what are they making now on their savings, retirement, on their investments? What's the percentage that they're making? I also ask them if they happen to have an old 401k that's sitting around from a previous employer, and if they would like to deploy that capital, because when your 401k is in with an employer, you're only allowed to invest in the mutual funds that are made available by that employer by the contract they have with Vanguard or Charles Schwab or whoever their account is with. You don't have that much flexibility. You can't buy individual stocks. You usually can't buy REITs. You know, you might have like 5 mutual funds that you can invest in. All right. The other thing is, really, when you talk to people about that, private lending, once you explain it to them, is very easy. And who wouldn't want a safe return on their money that's reliable with someone that they know and trust? Okay. And I also find that people might that do want to do private lending because they're afraid of the stock market and the loss of their principal, which doesn't happen on a house. You're not going to lose your principal. Okay. Next question. Do you make monthly payments? I seem to have a lot of issues with the bright lights here tonight. Do you make monthly payments? The answer to that is, that depends. Okay. So it depends on the person. Remember, this is your program, so you can run it however you would like to, within the guidelines of the SEC of your state and the federal government's SEC. So it depends. Now, on flips, you're only going to hold the property several months. Nobody wants to get these little small interest checks every month. So on flips, we always pay at the end because that's when we make our profit. So our investors get paid when we get paid, and that's how I explain it to them. During a flip, there is no income coming into the property, so we can't really support those payments. Okay. Now on rentals, if someone that's a longer term hold, and we will pay quarterly. That's the preferred method for us, and it's a lot easier. If someone really does want the monthly income, they're retired, and we'll do that. But quarterly is really a better way to go. All right, let's find the next question. Oh, the other advantage I didn't tell is that when your investor gets a really big check at the end, they get their principal and interest back, and then they're really happy, and they want to invest that money again and deploy it back out, because as soon as you give it to them, it's sitting at 1% in the bank. So they would rather put it back with you. Okay, next question. This is in green. Test out the green here. I'm flipping it around because I'm trying to see where it's easy to read. Okay, how is their loan secured? And can they lose? How is their loan secured? Can they lose? Making sure my volume's on here. Okay. All right. If they're in the first position on the loan, they are really at 70% of the after repair value, depending on how much you bought it for and how much you're fixing it for. Because you have a profit at the end, you're never borrowing the whole portion of the after repair value. You're borrowing the purchase price and the rehab money, which is usually about 70% of what the house is worth when it's fixed up. So no one is ever lending more money than the house is worth. They are secured by the value of the property, a note which is recorded against the property at the county courthouse, a deed of trust also recorded against the property at the county courthouse, which is a deed meaning you can't do anything with that property until you've paid off your lender. And the other one is fire insurance. If there's anything happening during the process, the insurance covers that problem. All right, next question. These ones are in green because they have to do with handling money and escrow. How is the money handled? Tilted a little bit. That seems to be better. How is the money handled? Okay, all of our loans are handled through escrow. Whenever we buy the property, the money is put through escrow. Even if we add a private lender on later, we do a second escrow if they're putting up a substantial amount of rehab money. Okay, an IRA provider would handle their money if it's an IRA investment, and the IRA money is sent from the provider directly to escrow. When we close, escrow gets the money and sends it back to the IRA. So their money goes from the IRA to escrow, and when we sell it, it goes right back into their IRA. The owner of the account can't touch that anyway, and we never touch the money either. It's always in escrow. It goes by wire or by check, and the escrow sets up a set of written directions that the lenders and us as the borrowers need to follow in order to close the deal. All right, so next one. Have you changed your rates? Okay, well, people ask that question a lot, and I find that the rate that I'm asking is not going to really affect the deal that much. What affects the deal is if you use hard money versus a private lender, because there's so many extra fees involved with a hard money lender. With a private money lender, if your rate changes 1 or 2% in either direction, it's not going to kill the deal. So you really need to make sure you have a really good deal, and then the interest rate doesn't matter that much. Usually we pay around 10% for our flips, and for our rentals, it's around 6%. It's still much higher than anyone would get in the bank, and it's also higher if you had a long-term rental. It's a little bit higher than you would pay the bank, but you're paying for the ease of having that private lender versus having a bank loan. And it might be a little bit lower if we have a long-term note, say 5 to 7 years for that deal. Okay, let's do the next question here. Where are your private lenders from? Where do they come from? They actually are from all over the place, all over the country. Remember, this is based on personal relationships. You are developing private lenders based on a relationship with them, and it's a trust relationship. The collateral is there on the deal to cover their money, and all the proper paperwork is being done. But the lenders, it's not someone you are going to go out and advertise for. It's not someone you don't know. It's someone that you do know and meet through your contacts. And I'll talk about that a little bit later and give you access to my ebook so that you can follow a system and make it easy to find your own private lenders. All right, so who is your typical investor? Who is your typical investor? My typical investor are really ordinary people. They're not super wealthy. They have some money. They've put it away from either their business or their job. And they generally have between $50K to up to $1 million to invest. The typical person maybe has, I can go as low as $25,000 if it has to do with rehab money. And they generally will put in maybe up to $250,000 in several deals at any one time, or in one particular deal. Usually they tend to have, around 100,000 in a particular deal. And so they're spreading their risk out as well by having money in several deals with our company. So they're ordinary people. I like to deal with W-2 people who have a nice retirement set up for them. Okay, next question. Let me get the card here. Here we go. What if someone wants points? What happens if they ask you about that when you're talking to them? Okay, if they want points, usually they are a broker. Okay, and the way the situation works is you're finding the deal, setting up the loan, doing all the paperwork, dealing with escrow. So no one really needs to get paid points because they're not doing any work to be paid as a broker. Okay. Sometimes they're a sophisticated investor. I have run into people that are either developers and they have some money and they're retired, so they want to do that, but they're used to getting a higher rate of return on their own projects. So I tend not to deal with them as much. They're a lot more trouble. I like people who have worked and, a W-2 employee, and that's what I like to do. Let me check the comments here. It looks like I might have a comment put in there. Okay, there's a comment on YouTube. I'm going to check that in a minute and see if there's a question. All right. Let's go into this here. Next question. And I'll take a break and I'll look at that comment on YouTube. How do you approach your lenders? Well, one question I ask my lenders is, do you have an IRA or other capital not getting you a 10% return safely? That is one of the questions that I ask to start the conversation. And they might commiserate about their low return or the CD rate or something like that. And then we go on to talk about their investments and what I do with my money, which is it's invested in real estate. And I also explain to them about self-directed IRA companies that you can use to move your 401k into if you have an old 401k from a former employer. You cannot do that with your present 401k with the employer that you have. They have their rules set up against that. So most times when someone leaves a job, they're not that happy with their former employer anyway, so they're happy to move it onto something else. When you start with a new employer, they ask you to move that amount of money over to their 401k plan because they just want more funds in their plan, and that affects what they pay the provider who's providing those plans for them. But you're not obligated to do that. You don't have to. You can start a new 401k with your new employer with zero and just start putting it in from day one. Take your old IRA, put it into a self-directed account, and probably in the next Hangout, I'm going to put up a list of and links to a number of self-directed accounts around the country. Because I deal with private lenders, I often do the paperwork with them for their IRA company. So I've experienced working with quite a few of these different IRA providers, and I can post a link for that. I'll probably put it in the comments section below this particular Hangout on YouTube, on Google+, and on my website, so you can take a look at those links. All right, let me post something up here for you guys to look at, and I'm going to screen share with you something I put on the last Hangout, and it's the kind of return that a private lender would get, and it's something that I made for you. I can also post a link for that in the comments section. It's the return they would get after 10 years as a private lender at 10%, and it's compared to the CD rate and also to the stock market rate. So let me go ahead and find that for you. Here we go. All right, so why don't you look at that while I check out the comment that I have over on YouTube. as you can see that there's 4 different things for them to look at. One is the percentage that they would get on one of your flips compared to the S&P 500 for 2004 all the way up to 2013, a 10-year period, what they might get as a return on investing with you as a rental, and then for a long-term CD, the rate that they would return. So I looked at it as a 10-year return, what they'd get monthly, what their total interest would be, and what they would be paid out at the end. So that's something that I wanted to show you, and I will put the links for you later there. Let me check Facebook as well, see if there's any comments. Okay, if you're watching from my website, wisewealthuniversity.com, the link to this spreadsheet is right underneath the live broadcast. So you can go ahead and grab that for yourself. It's a Google Doc. All right, so let me stop the screen share at this point, and I'll go on to the next question. All right, here we're back. Next question is, do your investors quit? Have you ever had an investor who quits? Investors don't quit if they're taken care of. So I have never had any investors quit investing with me. I've had them think about it and then not go in initially, but once they do start, they never quit. The only things that come up that would make an investor quit is, one, if they die, and then they're not making those decisions anymore. Divorce, because then their assets are all tied up at that point. Any kind of bankruptcy. Usually they're not in bankruptcy if they're lending money because they have cash. And any other sort of financial trouble. If they have financial trouble, they can't have their assets tied up at the present time. And so that would be the only thing that would cause them, to quit. What else do we have there? And I do take good care of my private lenders. So, all right. How many investors do you have for a project? Usually I have 1 to 2. Someone usually funds either the whole deal or they'll fund the purchase, and someone else will fund some of the rehab money. They don't have to be exact. If someone funds part of the purchase and someone wants to fund the rest, we put both of those 2 sets of money into the escrow, and then we basically are overfunding the deal. And whatever's left over after we pay for all the closing costs, that comes back to us as the rehab money. So it doesn't have to be the exact amount as the rehab. We do have a project now that's a much larger rehab where we're doing like $100K in remodeling on a more extensive rehab, and it's really a 6-month project by the time we sell it. A very nice, older downtown property. And so in that case, we have 4 people invested in that, either from their IRA, their own private lending IRA, or a savings or HELOC. So we have all of those elements in that particular deal. So we have a question here. If you were starting now, is there anything you would do differently? I would say what I would do is I would start using private lenders earlier in my investing career. I've been a landlord since 1989. So in the beginning, I did use banks. I was buying different kinds of properties that you could live in. And I wasn't buying the real badly damaged fixers. And so I was able to use banks for those. And sometimes I was buying properties, rental properties, multi-units that already had people in them. So, I could use a commercial lender for that. I find that I would have started earlier. Most of the people I run into really want a good return on their money. They want to know where it is. And, they know that it's invested with me, and they know that it's invested in a solid property that they can actually see. They know their money's in that house. And when they get the money back, they want to go into another deal, because when it's in their bank, they're not making money on that. Okay. So here we are. So anyway, when I looked, the comment was a question that I'd already gone over. So I didn't have any more questions from the comment tracker there. Okay. So what are the benefits to using private lenders and developing your own private lenders? Number one, once you have your system up and going, it's a very easy way for you to fund your deals, fund your properties, and develop some cash flow, especially if you have repeat customers. It's a safe way for them to invest, and most people are not aware of it. It's not something that is advertised readily in the market. Most people aren't aware that they can be a private lender, and no one's really training them about that. So it's really the best way for you to fund your real estate deals. So let me talk about the resources that I have available for you to use now that I've answered some questions. And the first one is an ebook that I have, and it's an ebook and a 10-day course, and it is on my website, right down here in the lower third. You can see it right over here, there. wisewealthuniversity.com/PV for private, PV lending is the name of the link. Okay, so if you go there, put in your email, you'll get the ebook, and then you'll also get subsequent emails over the course of 10 days as you start your conversations with potential private lenders. There's scripts in there. It's a very easy way to develop your own private lenders, and it's the system and that I have used. It's a step-by-step system. So go there to wisewealthuniversity.com/private PV lending /PV lending and get your ebook. So that's the first resource. The second one is that spreadsheet that I posted that you guys can have. It's on Google Docs. It shows what return a private lender would get after investing with you for 10 years compared to other returns. Now, one caveat, and I'll throw that up again through the screen share. Let me just explain it a little bit here. That's on the screen. All right, so it's a 10-year return, and you can change, if you get the Google Doc, you can change the principal, the interest rate, the length of the loan, and the payments will automatically calculate. It looks like a sheet here, but it's really a spreadsheet that allows you to change that. And the results down here will automatically change when you change the numbers in the table. The table's up at the top. These bars will automatically change when you adjust it. So say you only want to pay 9.5%, you can change this number right here. This number on from the S&P is something I should explain. That is the return. It's not the average return that you would get every year, which is somewhere closer to 9%. But what they don't do when they show the return every year and just averages, this is called the geometric return. What they do is show what happens when you have a year with a loss and then your money is still invested. You have to grow that money back so that the principal you're starting with that year is not the same. If you just take the average returns, it's around 9%. But if you take your money that you started 10 years ago and put those returns in, the 7.3% takes into account the losses of principal that you would have that year. and as your money grows, it would come back. So that's the average return for 10 years is right there, 7.34%. So that's a sheet that you can have. I'm going to post all these links after the broadcast so that you can take a look at them. They'll be on YouTube, on the replay, and they will be on Google Plus, and they will be on my website. And I'll show you a link to that right at this point. Okay, let me show you that. Okay, you can join me on the Hangouts at wisewealthuniversity.com/hangouts. And when you sign up there, you are taken to the live Hangout page. And on the live Hangout page, there are comments that continue from week to week. So if I've posted a link there from a previous, you can get all the links from any previous Hangouts if you look at the comments on the live page. So that's a good place to go for you to check that out. The other place you can get information is on Twitter. I post some of the links on Twitter, and at Twitter, my name is Pink Professor, and that's how you can find me on Twitter. Go back to this. All right, so those are the links. You can calculate your deal. Oh, one more link I'm going to show you. There's a link to some software, and I will screen share that as well. See if I can find it here. Here we go. Okay, this is REhab Valuator Lite. This is a spreadsheet, and it's free, and it's done by Daniel Clayman. And I have done a link for his free software that is also going to be posted on Google Plus and my website and YouTube underneath this video, so that you can look for the link. You can it is an affiliate link for me through him, and you can get a free copy of this report. And what it does is it will generate a report on what would happen, your cash flow to your lender down here if you did a refi, and as well if you had a rental property. And then there's a summary report that's available for you to print out and show to your potential private lenders, so that you can show them the money that they would make down here. Usually you're not going to be paying them points, but it'll show, once you change the purchase price and the interest rate, it'll show you what they would make, and you can just print it out and give it to them. All right, so those are all the links that I have for you tonight. I'm going to be starting a game on Facebook. It's going to be a private game all about private lending, and I have a friend who's going to be coaching that with me. And the way it works is that every couple days you'll be getting an email check from us, a pretend check, as if you had money from a private lender, and then everyone in the game posts what they would do with that particular set of money, and the money grows and grows through the course of the game. So if you want to sign up for that course, I'll be putting a link here soon underneath the video, so that you can start signing up. I think we're going to start the game in March, so I'm starting to promote it now and get people to sign up. Anyway, this concludes my series, the first part of my series on finding the deals and funding the deals. The 4 F's is the series. So there's four things involved: finding, funding, and we're going to go on now in the next coming weeks to fixing, and then flipping. Flipping would be to sell. So the 4 F's: find, fund, flip, and fix and flip. Find, fund, fix, and flip. We're going to be moving on next week to fixing, which is your remodel, your rehab, and we'll give you a lot of resources on how to do that. So thank you all for joining me tonight. I had a great time teaching you. I will see you next Thursday at 6 p.m. Thanks so much and have a great night.